Welcome back to Fireside Giants. Today, a special collaboration video with David over from Giants Alliance. Go check out his channel and his website. Does some great articles and some great videos. New up-and-coming Giants YouTuber from Palm Beach County, just like me. Go check him out. What's up, David? How you doing?
I'm doing awesome, man. Thanks a lot for having me on your show. I've been watching you guys for a while, and you guys put out some awesome Giants content. So I really appreciate it. It's really cool for me to actually be on your show. I appreciate it.
Of course, we're happy to have you. Today, David and I, we're going to be discussing Pro Bowlers potentially on the Giants roster. We did the offense on his channel, so go check that out. And right here, we're going to do the defense. We're going to discuss who we think has the best chance of making the Pro Bowl on the Giants defense in 2020. So to get started, I want to discuss the defensive line because I think that's the best position group really on the team. And I see maybe more than one player that could be Pro Bowl potential there. So I'm curious to know, what do you think? Who do you see in the defensive line that could maybe make the Pro Bowl?
Yeah, I agree with you that it's the strongest position group on the team. I think we have three players that have legitimate Pro Bowl potential. And I actually think there's one player that has the most potential, that actually has all pro potential on the defense, and that's Dexter Lawrence. I know a lot of people might expect me to say Leonard Williams, who had more pressures last year, or Dalvin Tomlinson, actually graded out as the best player on the defense, according to PFF last year. But I just think Lawrence has so much potential. He's 342 pounds. He has really long arms, and he's actually quicker than a lot of people give him credit for. So I could see him improving in the pass rushing department. And if you listen to him in interviews, he'll always say that he had a really inconsistent season. But that being said, he's still graded out as one of the best, or the best, interior defensive linemen out of all those rookies that were drafted, like better than Quinnen Williams, better than Ed Oliver. So I just think he has so much potential. I watched him at Clemson. His best year was actually his freshman season. And yeah, I could just see him, you know, breaking out with 6 or 7 sacks this year. And he's also a beast against the run. So yeah, he's the player I would pick out of anyone on the defensive line. But I also think Tomlinson and Leonard Williams can possibly make it as well.
I completely agree. I love Big Dexter Williams, Big Sexy Dexy. That guy's a beast, man. If any of our viewers listen to one of our previous podcast episodes, he has a really great quote about how much he loves beignets, and beignets are pretty good. And you know the man eats because he is a ginormous man. But like you mentioned, he's really quick for his size, and he is a pretty decent pass rusher. That's my favorite part about Dexter Lawrence is that he can get in the backfield and create some pressure and get some sacks. And then, of course, we have Leonard Williams. That was definitely a controversial trade to say the least, but he's here, whether we like it or not. And he's a solid player. He's got Pro Bowl potential. He's been to a Pro Bowl before. I could definitely see him having a good season and making the Pro Bowl again. So I think those are two candidates right there. And then Dalvin Tomlinson, the reason that I don't think he's really a Pro Bowl candidate, I think he's a very talented and great player, but he's not a big name. No one really knows him, and I don't see him ever having a huge season where he becomes a household name. And I just don't think that he would ever really get enough votes in the fan voting to make the Pro Bowl, despite him being a really solid, talented player. But that really wraps up the defensive line right there. Three Pro Bowl potential players I see in one position group, which is really awesome for the Giants. You think back to those last two Super Bowl victories, the defensive line was a huge part of it. And I'm really happy to see that Dave Gettleman has built a great defensive line. But then we look at the linebackers. I'm not as confident in that group as I am in the defensive line at all. I'm
Yeah.
really confident as I'm quite the opposite. So I'm curious to know, what do you think of this linebacker core?
Yeah, I don't think it's a strength of the team. I think Blake Martinez was a solid signing. When it initially happened, I wasn't overly excited about it because he does struggle a little bit with his athleticism and in
Hmm.
coverage, but he's solid. He led the league in tackles, I think 2 seasons ago, and he had 150 something tackles last year. Ryan Connolly, I actually think he's the X factor of the entire defense because last year I thought he was by far the best linebacker on the team. He only played 4 games, but in those 4 games, he was very good. He's somebody who's always in the right place at the right time. He's very quick, so he actually ran the 10-yard split of the 40-yard dash in the 99th percentile or
That's right.
something crazy like that. So if he could come back from his torn ACL like fully healthy this year, I think our linebackers can actually be pretty solid with Blake Martinez. Um, but at the same time, like you said, it's not a strength. So I actually see us playing more of like a 3-3-5 defense a lot
Yeah.
of the time, where we have like three safeties on the field, because I think our safeties are better than our linebackers. So it makes sense. And Patrick Graham played that kind of defense a lot last year when he was the coordinator for Miami. So yeah, I think our safeties have a better chance of making the Pro Bowl than our linebackers, but hopefully our linebackers pan out, because we've had a weakness at that position for so long.
Yeah, I completely agree with what you said about the safeties, which we're going to get into in just a second. But in terms of the linebackers, I'll give my opinions there too. Ryan Connolly, I'm happy that you brought up that 10-yard split statistic because it was really one of my favorite stats that I learned about him after we drafted him. I didn't know much about him beforehand, but once he was on the team, that was one of the stats that I found that really excited me. And it's funny because I saw that show up on the field like time after time. He's really smart and he gets in the backfield quick. He has the play recognition. He knows how to shoot the gaps, and that's where that 10-yard split comes into play. So I think that was a great stat to bring up. And then also with Blake Martinez, I think everyone at this point knows I wasn't really a fan of that signing. I thought it was a pretty bad signing. I was very disappointed in it. But the more and more that I've learned, I've really come to peace with it. I think that what's encouraging me about Blake Martinez, and I don't think that he's really necessarily Pro Bowl potential, but what's encouraging me about him is the fact that he knows Patrick Graham, and in Patrick Graham was a linebackers coach and run game coordinator for the Packers in 2018 with Blake Martinez. So they know each other very well, and if you listen to Blake Martinez talk about Patrick Graham, that's what's encouraging is they really do have a good relationship. And Blake Martinez didn't like his role in the 2019 Packers defense, and he thrived and really appreciated his role in the 2018 Packers defense because of Patrick Graham. So that excites me. Maybe he could be an improved player, and hopefully he is. I don't think that he's very good in coverage, though, and I think that Connolly is pretty good in coverage, so hopefully he's able to return from that injury and maybe make up for what Blake Martinez is kind of lacking in that department. So now we'll move on to the secondary. We'll start with the safeties. Three really talented safeties on this roster. I'm a huge fan of really all three of them. Julian Love, we did have him as an interview on Fireside Giants about a couple
Oh, no.
months ago, and that was really great. And he's excited for the season. He's motivated, and I even asked him a question, which is in retrospect a really great question that I asked. I asked him what he would think of another safety being brought into the mix via the draft in the second round. And then that happened with Xavier McKinney, which we're all really excited about. And Julian Love, he was very, he was fine with it. He was actually excited for it if it did happen. He said the competitive nature would be great. We would just try to get better together and it would just strengthen our team as a whole. So if that's the move that they make, it wouldn't slight him, he said, and it would just motivate him to get better and help the rest of the team get better. So I'm really excited for that safety trio. I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, I'm very excited. I think they have so much upside. Julian Love, I was looking at his statistics on PFF, and I know a lot of Giants fans are not very high on PFF after what they said about Daniel Jones and Eli over the
Right.
years, but they do a good job of like tracking where the players line up on defense.
Yeah.
And Julian Love actually lined up at slot cornerback last year more than he did at deep half safety.
Mm-hmm.
So I actually foresee him possibly playing a little bit of slot, a little bit slot cornerback, a little bit deep half safety. I think he can do a little bit of everything. And he has very good football instincts. Like even at Notre Dame, he was a finalist for the Jim Thorpe Award at cornerback, and he's listed as a cornerback on the Giants website. I'm not sure if that really means anything, but it's just interesting to me. So I could see him playing a little bit of both. Peppers is someone that I think has actually the highest upside out of any of our safeties, because just his athleticism. He's by far the most athletic safety that we have. And then McKinney, I think McKinney is going to help us most actually guarding tight ends out of the slot, because I thought he did a really good job with that at Alabama. And all the guys I think are very good against the run, which I like. And then I think McKinney and Peppers especially are very good at like blitzing and getting after the quarterback.
Mm.
So yeah, I think we could do a lot of interesting things with our safety. So I could see us playing all three of those guys on the field at the same time more often than not, even when the other team is in their like two tight end sets, because I just think our defensive line is stout enough to like handle the run where you can play with three safeties more often than not.
Me too. And I'll say with Julian Love, I'm happy you brought up the stats in terms of where he lined up because I think a common misconception is that he is a free safety. Last season, he really didn't play a lot of free safety. He played more strong safety. He was in the box a lot because he was filling in for the injured Jabril Peppers. And I thought that he really thrived in that role and, like you said, has great instincts, and that showed up in run defense. I remember a play against the Dolphins and a play against the Eagles where he lit up some runs in the backfield, and those caught my eye. Forced a fumble against the Packers. Great player. I don't think that Pro Bowl potential is there though, just because he is a lesser known name. I think that he's always going to be. I think he's going to have a long career with the Giants, and it's always going to be really solid contributions, but never like in that upper echelon tier for safeties. Just as a rotational, really great player. But with Jabril Peppers, he's a very boom or bust player. He either makes a great hit and forces a fumble, or he completely whiffs on a tackle, I feel like. And
Yeah.
I see a lot of potential there. But out of the three, Xavier McKinney is the one that I think has the most Pro Bowl potential. I think he is really, to me, the X factor of the defense. You mentioned Ryan Connolly. To me, it's Xavier McKinney because I think he can do it all. He can, like you mentioned, cover tight ends, play. He's really great in man coverage. I think he's an excellent run defender as well, and a really underrated pass rusher. He had a very high pressure rate, according to Pro Football Focus, during his time at Alabama. So I see him. I know a lot of Giants fans really wanted Isaiah Simmons. I think that Xavier McKinney was the next best thing, and we were really lucky to land him in the second round. But out of those three guys, if you had to pick one or two who are Pro Bowl candidates, who would they be?
Yeah, I go back and forth between Peppers and McKinney, like who's going to actually have a bigger impact this season. And yeah, one thing I really like about McKinney is his ability to get after the quarterback. What sticks out to me was last year against LSU, he blitzed against Joe Burrow, and LSU was just like tore through the SEC last year. They were a very special team, but McKinney got in the backfield a couple times, and he had a strip sack of Joe Burrow. And there was one play against Texas A&M where he basically like threw the right guard to the side a little bit and got after the quarterback. So I think McKinney has a very good chance of maybe Rookie of the Year and maybe Pro Bowl because he's going to do a little bit of everything and he has a nose for the football. So yeah, I agree with you. I think McKinney probably has the most potential to make the Pro Bowl out of those guys.
I agree. And then staying in the secondary, let's look at the cornerback position. We have a new addition there, James Bradbury, who I think is going to be a pretty big improvement over Janoris Jenkins. And then after that, there's a lot of question marks. So, what do you think about the cornerbacks? Do you see any names that stick out that could maybe be Pro Bowl potential players?
As like a dark horse Pro Bowl guy, I could see Darnay Holmes, but I mean he's
I
just
like
a
that.
rookie. We don't even know if he's 100% going to start this year, and maybe he'll
Hmm.
start in the slot. Although I do think he can play a little bit on the outside. I don't think he's strictly a slot cornerback. But Bradbury is someone I actually expect to be at a Pro Bowl level. Last season, he played well enough to make the Pro Bowl. He was on a very bad Carolina defense, which I think factored into him not making it. But he was drafted in the second round in 2016, and he immediately became that team's best cornerback. I can remember against Odell Beckham in 2018, I thought he did a pretty solid job against
Hmm.
him. And he's always guarded the best receivers like Michael Thomas, Julio Jones, Mike Evans, and more often than not, he does a pretty good job. So yeah, I kind of expect him to, if he doesn't make the Pro Bowl, be like right on the borderline of making it because I do think, like you said, he's going to be a big upgrade over Jenkins.
I agree. I love the fact that he travels with the team's number one receiver, and he went against the best competition possible in the NFC South. Michael Thomas, Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, and I know I'm forgetting someone else, but he's gone up against the best, and he's actually going to go up against lesser talent in the NFC East. He's still got Amari Cooper to worry about, but other than that, Terry McLaurin, Jalen Rager, it's definitely going to be a little bit easier on him. But I do think he's a solid player. I'm not sure if I would consider him a Pro Bowl candidate, though. And last position group that we have to discuss, I don't really think there's any Pro Bowlers here either. but maybe you might see it differently. The edge rushers, the pass rushers. Kyler Fackrell is a name that I think could have a good year, but there's really no one that stands out to me as Pro Bowl potential.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. I don't think anyone will be that close to making a Pro Bowl out of the edge guys. I think with Patrick Graham, nobody really knows for sure what kind of defense he's going to play with the Giants, but it seems like he's going to use his edge rushers differently than James Bettcher did, where
Hmm.
he's going to want more versatile guys. And Fackrell is very versatile. Like he's pretty good in coverage. I think Lorenzo Carter was going to be asked to do like different things besides getting after the quarterback. Zimenez is, I think, our best pure pass rusher. And he only played, I think he played like less than half the snaps last year.
He did.
And he still had 4.5 sacks. So I could see him, maybe if he gets double digit sacks, like being on that range of a possible Pro Bowler. And hopefully he breaks out this year for the sake of the Giants. But yeah, the edge rusher, I think most people would agree, is probably the weakest part of the team. But at the same time, there's guys with a lot of potential. So yeah, hopefully Fackrell, Zimenez, Carter, and maybe Golden, if he comes back, can provide enough pass rush for our defense this year.
Right. Yeah. So I think we agree. Not a lot of Pro Bowl talent there, but definitely talented players that could have solid years and contribute to this team. And one last question before we wrap up, a little fun one here. If you could pick any player in the league defensively to pluck out of their team and put on the Giants roster, who would it be?
Yeah, that's a really good question, actually. And I've thought about this, I guess, because I'm not like a normal person. I just think about stuff like this all the time. If I could pick one player, it would actually be on the Cowboys because it would be weakening the Cowboys. And they have one player that kind of makes their defense much better than ours, in my opinion. And they actually have a couple of players like that, but I would pick DeMarcus Lawrence because I think he is a top 5, possibly top 5, top 10 pass rusher in the NFL. It would weaken the Cowboys. And I think that's kind of what separates us. Like they have that dominant pass rusher and we don't. They also have Jalen Smith and Van Der Esch, who are very good middle linebackers. But I think Lawrence is at a higher tier than the rest of our pass rushers. So I would probably pick him. But I'd be interested to hear your answer. Who would you pick if you can take any defensive player?
Well, I'll first say that that was a really good answer. I like the fact that you're weakening the Cowboys while strengthening the Giants. That's awesome. But for me, it would be Nick Bosa. That dude is really
Yeah.
talented and really young, and I see a really long, productive career in his future. He was someone that going into that draft, I mean, I would have killed to have him on the Giants, but it just wasn't possible. He was a top 3 lock, and there was no way he
Yeah.
was falling out of there. And because he's just so talented, he was virtually unblockable at Ohio State, and it almost looks that way in the NFL now. So that would be my pick. Long term, great pass rushing ability. So that pretty much wraps it up. I want to thank you again for joining me on the channel and talking some Giants Pro Bowlers. Had a lot of fun, and I'll give you the last word.
Yeah, thanks so much, man. I've been a big fan of your channel and your articles on Empire Sports Media as well. So it's really cool that I'm able to come on your show. Check out my YouTube channel. And then also, I have a website that I just came out with called nygiantsalliance.com. I also write some Giants articles on there. So check it out. And I appreciate it, man. This has been a lot of fun.
Of course. Happy to have you. And definitely, guys, go check out his channel. He does a lot of great content there. Check out his website. Great articles over there, too. He's even got a 2021 big board posted right now. I noticed that when I was on there. Thought that was pretty cool. Maybe in the future, we'll collaborate and we'll discuss that. We'll discuss top prospects in next year's draft. That would be fun. So, once again, thanks for coming on. Leave a like if you enjoyed, guys. Subscribe to me, subscribe to him, and we'll see you in the next one.
Thanks a lot, man.